Hana Matsuda believed coffee had a secret pitch. The faint hum that rose from a perfectly pulled espresso shot. That soft tone, hovering somewhere between heartbeats and the hiss of steamed milk, was what had lured her to the barista station of Neku no Uta, Tokyo's first cat cafe. The name meant Song of the Cat, and on quiet mornings, Hana sometimes wondered whether the founder had chosen it for marketing charm or for some deeper intuition that cats might indeed carry songs inside them. The cafe occupied a restored two-story machiya on a side street in Asakusa. Tourists came for the novelty of sipping lattes, while 30 resident felines lounged around tatami mats, conquered windowsills, and perched atop tree-like platforms that reached the ceiling. The rules were strict. No picking up cats, no flash photography, silence during the afternoon napping hour. What no laminated English menu explained, however, was that every cat wore a tiny silver bell lashed to a silk cord the color of persimmons. Visitors thought the uniform collars were for identification or simply ornamental. Only the staff noticed how those bells seemed to chime with oddly precise pitches whenever a cat leapt, stretched, or flicked its head. Hana first sensed the pattern on an icy January morning, a week after she'd taken the job. She was wiping down the glass pastry case when Haru, a plump white tom, vaulted from the counter to the floor. His bell rang a clear G above middle C. A moment later, slender black Kuru padded past, tail high, emitting a bright E. Two more cats stirred, Sora with his grey stripes, CE, and Apricot, the calico, D. The quartet of notes lingered in Hana's memory long after their vibrations dissolved into the cafe's usual ambience of chatter and grinder drones. That afternoon, when the lull between customers allowed her to practice latte art, Hana hummed the 4 notes absent-mindedly. They fit together, the way the opening of a folk melody might fit. G-E-C-D. She shook her head and chalked it up to coincidence. But coincidences began to accumulate. Over the next week, she found herself tracking which cat moved when, which bell chimed. Kuro leapt. E again. Haru stretched. Another G. A shy newcomer named Mikan brushed against her ankle. A plaintive eh. If she plotted the notes on the back of discarded order slips, they formed phrases, repeats, a deliberate structure. Music scholar though she was not, Hana could tell intention from randomness. Something was teaching the cats to move in a sequence. She might have dismissed the mystery altogether had it not been for the newspaper article she saw one rainy Tuesday while delivering a cappuccino to an elderly regular. The headline read, "Temple treasures still missing 10 years after theft. Police seek new leads." The story referred to Yakushogasho, a 7th century Buddhist temple 10 blocks from the cafe. A decade earlier, several priceless ritual objects, 2 gold wind bells, a carved wooden sutra case, and a bronze censer shaped like a lotus had vanished overnight. Security cameras had malfunctioned, and the thieves were never found. Rumor said the treasures remained somewhere in the district, hidden but unsold because the pieces were too famous to fence. Hana skimmed the article, shrugged, and returned to the espresso machine. Yet as she arranged cups, her eyes lingered on an archival photo of the censer. Its lid had ornate cutouts shaped like music notes. Sound, silence, and secrets twined together in her imagination until she found herself humming the cat's motif again. That evening, when the last customer departed and the staff swept crumbs from tatami, Hana approached Yori Kameda, the cafe's founder. Kameda-san, in his 60s, wore horn-rimmed glasses and exuded the gentle severity of a retired school principal. He cared for the cats with monk-like devotion. "May I ask about the bells?" Hana ventured, keeping her voice low so as not to disturb the napping felines. "Bells?" Kameda tilted his head. "Each one is tuned to a different note. Was that on purpose?" Kameda smiled, neither confirming nor denying. "Our patrons enjoy a little music while they play. Is there a problem?" "No, not at all." Hana said quickly. I'm only curious. He patted her shoulder. Curiosity keeps the world interesting, Matsuda-sanan, but don't let it chase you down dark alleys. His cryptic tone left her more intrigued than reassured. Over the next days, Hana ate, slept, and dreamed in notes. She downloaded a pitch detection app to her phone and, during breaks, verified each cat's tone. She mapped them to corresponding letters. Haru, K, Kuro, E, Mikan, A, Sora, C, Apricot, D, and so on until she catalogued 26 distinct pitches across the entire feline population, conveniently matching the English alphabet with a few sharps and flats for punctuation. That discovery electrified her. What if the cats were spelling words? She dusted off her high school cryptography memories, shifting letters into ciphers. A loud solemnity, yet when she transcribed a full day's chorus, the sequence read like nonsense. G-E-A-D-F. E-C-A-B flat. Unless she grouped notes not chronologically but spatially, who moved nearest whom. Still gibberish. Then she noticed timing. The cats were fed at 8, 12, and 6. Between feedings they roamed freely. But at exactly 4 in the afternoon, just as sunlight slanted through the lattice windows, the entire Clouder seemed to rouse from naps, as if cued by an invisible conductor. They stretched, hopped platforms, swished tails, and their bells rang out about 30 notes over 3 minutes, always in the same order. Hana recorded the sequence for 3 consecutive days. Laid across staff music paper, the melody revealed itself. A complex but lyrical pentatonic tune that repeated twice. She recognized the scale from summer festivals, a gagaku court music mode used originally in temples. Gagaku, temple, missing treasures. Her pulse quickened. She located an online archive of Yakushokushi's ceremonial music. After hours scouring scratchy recordings, she found a match. The Kaokuku no Michi, or Path to Well-Being, performed once a year during the equinox. According to liner notes, the melody traditionally accompanied the unveiling of sacred objects. Hana sat back in the staff room futon, astonished. Someone had trained the cats to reenact a ritual tune linked to the missing artifacts. But who? And why publicize it inside a tourist café? Unless the melody itself hid directions. Directions only decipherable by someone who could hear pitches, write them down, and see path coincidence. Someone like a barista with sensitive ears. The next afternoon she lingered after closing, waiting until even the assistant manager left. Tomita remained upstairs in his office, paperwork rustling. Hana perched cross-legged among the dozing cats and replayed her recordings. She tapped a pencil against her notebook. If the melody repeated twice, maybe it encoded 2 dimensions, latitude and longitude, or 2 halves of a longer code. The phrase rose, fell, paused on a sustained low B. She scrawled the notes into rhythmic groups. Suddenly the rests between clusters resembled dashes and dots more. She converted them and groaned at another dead end, another angle. Temple tradition used melodic phrases to indicate directions inside mandala layouts. She downloaded an image of Yakushoti's floor plan. Imagining the main hall as central note C, subsequent notes might map to adjacent chambers. G, E, C, D. That traced an arc from main hall to east cloister to garden gate to belfry. The pattern mirrored the cat's choreography. They always moved clockwise when chiming the tune. Excitement surged. She overlaid the melody onto the temple map. Path, gate, belfry, sutra repository, meditation cave beneath the rear pagoda. The final sustained B aligned with the cave. Sealed since the theft because of instability, reports claimed no one had entered in decades. Perhaps because no one knew there was something worth finding anymore. Hana's rational brain cautioned, "You are weaving fairy tales out of Meows." Yet, gut certainty hummed inside her like a tuning fork. She had to see that cave. The next morning, she requested the early shift. finished by noon, and told co-workers she had a dentist appointment. Instead, she biked to Yakashokuji, her backpack stuffed with flashlight, sketch pad, and a thermos of coffee for courage. The temple grounds were quiet, off the main tourist track. She paid a modest entry fee, left her shoes at the Genkan, and wandered deeper. Monks in saffron robes tended lanterns. Visitors photographed koi in the pond. Hana examined signposts until she spotted a roped-off stone stairway descending behind the pagoda. A wooden placard. Meditation cave closed, unsafe. Unsafe had never stopped movie protagonists, she mused. But she had no desire to trigger a landslide. Instead, she found the administration office and introduced herself to a middle-aged priest named Arai. "I'm researching local music traditions," she fibbed, showing him the melody in her notebook. "This phrase seems associated with your cave ceremony, doesn't it?" Arai's eyebrows lifted. "Where did you hear that?" "The Kawafuku no Michi hasn't been performed here in 10 years. I heard it, second hand." "Not quite a lie," he sighed. "Yes, the melody once guided devotees through the cave labyrinth. Pilgrims followed the chant, trusting sound over sight. We stopped after the theft. Too many memories." "May I see the cave? I promise to respect all rules." Harai hesitated. "I'd need approval from Abbot Nitta, and he'll ask why. Music research alone won't convince him." Hana swallowed panic. She could confess the Cat Café riddle, risk sounding delusional, or retreat. Before she chose, a new voice cut in. "She can go with me. I'll vouch." She spun to find Kamida standing behind her, still wearing his café vest and holding a cat carrier as though he'd come straight from Neko no Uta. Inside the carrier, Haru peered out, bell muted by a cloth wrap. "Kamida-san, what?" He dipped his head toward Arai. "Old friends," he explained. "I once served as temple archivist." To Hana he added softly, "You fit the melody together faster than I expected." Shock and relief collided in Hana's chest. "You knew!" "I planted seeds." He lifted the carrier. "And pause?" Arai looked between them, bemused, then shrugged. "Very well, but if anything happens—" "It won't," Kameda promised. Minutes later, the three of them and Haru stood at the barricaded stair. Arai unlocked chains and lent them 2 helmets. The cat carrier dangled from Kameda's left hand. He gestured for Hana to lead. The stair descended into cool darkness. Their flashlights revealed rough stone walls bearing faint sutra inscriptions, a musty smell of earth and incense mixed with stale air. At the bottom, a tunnel bent right. Hana's heart pounded, not entirely from exertion. Kameda directed her. "Recall the melody. Each phrase is 8 steps. On the long note, pause." They moved accordingly. 8 steps forward, pause, turn, climb narrow rises, pause. The rhythmic pacing mirrored the cat's afternoon dance. Hana felt the melody inside her bones, guiding footfalls. After the 6th turn, the passage widened into a circular chamber. The flashlight beams converged on a stone pedestal draped in cobwebbed brocade. Empty. Dust outlined 3 absent objects: the wind bells, the sutra case, the bronze censer. "They were kept here?" Hana whispered. "Yes," Kameda said. "The thieves breached the cave through a rear fissure. We widened it to transport pieces out for restoration, then sealed it when they vanished." Hana swallowed disappointment. She had hoped to find the missing treasures, not only their silhouettes. Then the melody was a trail to nothing. "Not nothing." Kameda knelt and unwrapped Haru's bell. The cat meowed irritably. Kameda set him on the ground. Haru shook his neck, G ringing bright. The sound bounced around stone like water ripples. A low metallic resonance answered, faint yet distinct, somewhere beyond the chamber wall. Haru padded to a shadowy corner where the wall appeared solid. He sat, tail curled, and mute twice. Each mew triggered a jingle, and the mysterious resonance answered. "Korama." Kamida murmured. Echo spirits, or, more practically, hidden cavity. Arai approached, pressing ear to rock. I hear airflow. He fetched a crowbar from a maintenance niche in the tunnel and began levering at a seam. After tense minutes, a slab shifted, revealing a crawl space. Hana's flashlight probed the gap. Within lay a chest, barely larger than a carry-on suitcase, its lacquer dulled by age. Beside it sat the bronze lotus censer, thick with grime, but unmistakable. The gold wind bells and sutra case rested atop the chest, cushioned by cloth. She gasped. "They're here! But how? The thieves?" "There were no thieves," Kameda said quietly. "We hid them." Arai closed his eyes, shame flickering across his face. "During the recession 10 years ago, the temple verged on bankruptcy. We feared the treasures would be seized by creditors or sold overseas. The abbot made a desperate plan, announce a theft, file insurance, and preserve the artifacts secretly until finances stabilized. But guilt weighed on the elder monks. 2 passed away carrying the secret. The others feared confessing fraud. Only Kamida-san and I remained, who knew. Hana stared, dizzy. Then the bell melody. "Insurance investigators suspected inside involvement," Kamida continued. "We needed a means to guide trustworthy successors here should we too become unable. I lacked family, or students in whom to confide. But I had cats, and I believed a musical mind would eventually decipher their song. When Neko no Uta opened, I tuned each bell and taught them the pattern." Anna recalled his earlier warning. Curiosity keeps the world interesting, but don't let it chase you down dark alleys. He had been half hoping she'd follow. "You could have just told me," she said, half laughing, half crying. Kamida's eyes sparkled. "And deprive you of the adventure? Besides, trust must be earned, not given." Arai knelt before the chest, tears wetting his cheeks. "It's time we return these to their rightful place and confess." Kamida sighed. "Agreed. The insurance has long been spent on temple repairs. We'll face legal consequences, but our hearts will be lighter." Hana watched them, conflicted. They had lied, yes, but for preservation. A decade of visitors had been deprived of sacred art. Law and ethics intertwined messily. Still, her role felt clear. "I'll help," she said. "But there's a way to turn confession into celebration. Tomorrow is the spring equinox, isn't it?" She pointed to the censor's lotus petals. "Revive the Ko Alfuku no Michi ceremony. Unveil the pieces publicly. Explain everything. People will forgive when they see the treasures safe and hear the full story." Arai exhaled, hope seeping into his voice. "Perhaps." Kamida smiled at Hana. "You've a talent for harmony in music and people." They spent the next hours carefully wrapping artifacts for transport, cataloguing every scratch to facilitate honest restitution. Haru supervised from atop the chest, tail flicking approvingly. By dawn, the cave was resealed, the barricade restored. Hana biked home, mind buzzing with caffeine-like exhilaration. The equinox arrived clear and mild. News spread quickly once Yakusoji announced a special restitution ceremony on social media. Locals, tourists, and reporters crowded the courtyard. Hana stood by the pagoda steps, wearing borrowed temple whites. Around her ankles, the Café cats roamed. Kamida had secured special permission to bring them as honored guests. He'd retuned their bells overnight, replacing tarnished silver with polished brass so the notes rang brighter. Abbot Nitastup, but dignified, addressed the crowd. He confessed the staged theft, the financial desperation, the sacred cave, the shame. Murmurs rippled through listeners, yet anger did not ignite. Perhaps the openness of the admission disarmed them. When monks placed the restored treasures on a platform, sunlight ignited gold and bronze into flame. Cameras flashed. Children gasped. The wind bells rang softly in a passing breeze, answering their feline cousins below. Then, at exactly 4 o'clock, the cats began to move. Assisted by treats discreetly placed at compass points, they trotted the precise choreography Hana had mapped. Bells chimed the Koofu ku no mi, the melody, twined with the flute ensemble's accompaniment, until courtyard and sky seemed to pulse with living music. Hardened journalists lowered phones, eyes shining. Hana poured tea for visitors, watching wonder rise like morning mist. The plan had worked. Confession had turned into shared catharsis. Donations poured into the temple's relief fund, exceeding any previous insurance payout. Prosecutors announced they would weigh community service over criminal charges, citing cultural preservation and voluntary disclosure. That evening back at Nikko no Uta, Hana sank onto a cushion, exhausted but buoyant. The cats lounged in post-performance bliss. Haru settled on her lap, purring a steady G. Kamida offered her a matcha latte, hands trembling with relief. "You saved us," he said simply. "We saved each other," she replied. "Besides, I only followed the music," he chuckled. "Music has led stranger souls to enlightenment." She looked around the cafe, walls glowing warm with lantern light, customers cooing at fur and foam art. A week ago, this had been merely her part-time job. Now it was the prelude to the most improbable partnership she could imagine. Barrister, cat wrangler, and guardian of reclaimed history. "Will you keep the bells tuned?" she asked. "Of course. Their song is part of us now. But I've composed a new melody, simpler, lighter. Care to teach the cats?" Hana grinned. "With pleasure. And next time the music points somewhere, we go together." Haru flicked an ear, as if already memorizing fresh notes, ready to guide humans yet again across invisible maps of sound. Outside, Tokyo thrummed with neon and traffic, unaware of the adventures stratified in its side streets. Inside Neko no Uta, cups clinked, milk scented the air, and 30 bells chimed in gentle counterpoint, a reminder that history sometimes hides in purrs, that courage can bloom from curiosity, and that the smallest cat, with one perfectly pitched ring, can open a door long thought sealed. And somewhere beyond the cafe walls, though no human ear could hear it, the ancient treasures themselves seemed to sigh in contentment. Their silence now harmonized with the living melody of everyday life.